In today's video, what I want to talk about is a wonderful series that I just finished watching on Netflix called The Clubhouse, a year with the Red Sox. And it follows the 2024 season of the Boston Red Sox of Major League Baseball, obviously a very storied franchise. And I am definitely not a Boston Red Sox fan per se. I definitely have enjoyed watching games with the Red Sox. I'm actually a Blue Jays fan coming from Canada originally, but I've enjoyed watching the Red Sox over the years, watching them. I actually was happy for them. A lot of people, especially Yankees fans, were unhappy for the Red Sox anytime that they win, but I was happy when they finally broke through and won their first World Series, first of many. They've won multiple World Series. However, they kind of hit a bit of a rough patch over the last few years, and this 2024 season is the subject matter of this documentary on Netflix. And it's kind of converted me a bit into a bit of a Red Sox fan. I wouldn't say I'm an actual fan, but I certainly found myself after the series being interested in, at least tracking the Red Sox somewhat, although some of the players that were on the roster from the 2024 season are no longer playing with the Red Sox. O'Neill is somebody who stands out. I think he's actually a Canadian player as well. And I should just warn you, by the way, that this video is going to contain probably some spoilers in the sense that I'm going to get into some of the topics talked about in the various episodes. I definitely binge watch this entire series on Netflix, and especially if you're a sports fan. But even if you're not, if you're somebody who likes the humanity behind the sports, the drama of what is a sports drama, then you will find yourself possibly binging this as well. But certainly you'll find it entertaining as I did. I'm confident of that. And what I want to focus on in this video, with all that introduction aside, is the story of Jarren Duran. I have to look down at my notes over here because it's an interesting name, Jarren Duran, and he features prominently in several episodes of this series. And I found myself just with so many different takeaways, those of you who have subscribed to my channel. By the way, don't forget it's been so long since I did a video, I forgot to ask you to, or humbly ask you to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss a future video. It helps you not miss a future video, but it helps me, of course, to continue to produce videos like this and hopefully better quality videos and bring you more content, whether it's on things like sporting events, entertainment, consciousness, meditation, all sorts of different topics, pretty much topics that I find of interest. And I'm sure there's many of you out there who do as well, which is actually shown by the fact that the subscribership keeps growing, even though I haven't done a video in a while. So thank you to those who have subscribed, by the way, if you're watching this video and you are a subscriber. And if you haven't, hit that subscribe button and the like button and share this with any other baseball fans or anybody who you think may find this of interest. So I'm going to hone in on what I learned, the takeaways that I learned from watching Jarren Duran in this series. Okay. And, I talked about the fact that there are some spoilers. On the other hand, if you haven't watched this series yet, you may find that you understand this video more once you have watched the series already, or at least the episodes featuring Jarren Duran. So it's up to you how you want to do this. If you want to watch this after you watch the series or watch this before, maybe this is a bit of a teaser to sort of whet your appetite to go and watch this, because I do recommend watching this television show. I'm dating myself. This series called The Clubhouse, a year with the Red Sox. And the first takeaway I've jotted down, this isn't necessarily in any particular order, this is kind of as it entered my thoughts, was to show you that there are real struggles that a lot of these baseball players have, sports athletes in general, but obviously I'm talking about baseball here in this video. There are real struggles that baseball players have. So Jarren Duran talks about his struggles, his challenges with mental health. In fact, it got so bad that at one point he actually tried to commit suicide. Fortunately, he was not successful, and that led him back to understanding that there's a reason why he is here. And if you continue to watch the series, and as I'm going to share with you about some of the wonderful things that he's doing, not just on the field, but also off the field, there definitely is a higher purpose to Jarren Duran being here. But this really underscores the fact that, a lot of people tend to think, oh, they're pampered baseball players, they make millions of dollars and blah, 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 blah. You know what? That's true, but it's also true that they're human beings and they have very real struggles just like anybody else. So just because somebody is a multimillionaire, by the way, I don't think Jarren Duran, I think now he has signed a large, or a relatively large contract with the Red Sox, but up until this point, he was under obligation to the Red Sox. That's how it works. They're in the first few years of a baseball player's entry into the league, they're under contract for the team that drafted them. So it's not like he was making tons and tons of money by Major League Baseball standards, but even a nice salary, if you want to say, that doesn't mean that he won't have his very real struggles and challenges. And Jarren Duran definitely shares about the fact that he has those in a very real and raw and emotional way. So, if nothing more, I think for that takeaway alone, just so to understand that these are very real human beings and not just kind of, some may be pampered, but not all of them, probably most of them are not these pampered, spoiled brats that a lot of times some will have you believe. It was a very interesting and informative takeaway that I got from watching Jarren Duran open up about his mental health struggles. Number two, I jotted down here is about the challenges of being a role model, because on the one hand, you see Jarren Duran after the game, he's going around giving autographs, taking pictures, all sorts of things that he's doing for the fans in a very real, down-to-earth way. And he remarks in a very kind manner, and I really was blown away by how kind he is that, and you may have heard this idea before, but the fact that he's thinking about this, and remember, at a very young age, I think he's only, I don't know how old he is he 23 or 28 years old? Either way, he's in his 20s, very young. And I say that as a 45-year-old as of the date of this recording. He talks about how if he was on the other side of the fence waiting for an autograph, how much it would make his day if a baseball player would go up to him. So he wants to give back in that way that he can. And for him to think like that, to be empathic, to have empathy, to understand, to look at things from the shoes of the fans is something that I really found to be amazing that Jarren really understands. I have to keep having to look down. Such an interesting name, Jarren Duran. The fact is that he takes his role modelship, if you will, seriously, and he really is kind in giving back to the fans. At the same time, there's an episode where he makes a mistake. He makes a verbal epithet during the game. Somebody was ribbing on him. This ties, by the way, back to what I was saying about athletes being human beings. They're human beings in the sense that they make mistakes. And also, when you holler out mean things, okay, you can say that they sign up for this. Players themselves will tell you that. They make a lot of money. They sign up for this type of lifestyle. But at the same time, when you hurl these insults at players, you're not hurling them at robots. You're hurling them at actual human beings with feelings. And Jarren lets his emotions get the best of him and says something that is inexcusable, as he himself explained after the game in the presser, and he ended up getting suspended for it. So he did make a mistake, and it goes to show you he realized how difficult it is to be a role model, because in a certain sense, you're expected to be at your best 24/7, and he had a slip up, and that cost him dearly. When you have a slip up as a role model of an athlete, especially when it comes to epithets, then it's going to cost you dearly. But he really was beating up himself more than anybody over what he did, mostly because he let down a lot of fans who were just terribly hurt by what he said. So it goes to show you the kind of kindness on the one hand of Jarren's role modelship, and on the other hand, the fact that when you do slip up, it can be very significant. So it is a very dangerous type of thing to be dangerous, so to speak, to be a role model as well. And I thought that was an interesting lesson about the idea of role model. It's not just glamour; it's actually a tremendous responsibility. Number three is something that I noted down that's close to my heart as a vertically challenged person. I'm not the tallest guy in the world, is that Jarren is also not so tall. And in a world of sports where a lot of the players are just getting taller and taller, seemingly, than the old days, if you will, he is a very small player relatively speaking. I forgot to check up before I did this video how tall he is, but he definitely is short. And he talks about having battles with his self-esteem arising from the fact that he's so short his whole life. And look how he persevered to the point where he made it to the majors. So it goes to show you, yes, he's not the only short player out there, but certainly the fact that he is not tall was something that weighed on him, and he was able to take that and use it to motivate him and make it to the majors. So it's a real important lesson that not to give up on yourself. You got to just have that confidence. Not you got to, but one can work on having that confidence, making up for the fact that there may be some sort of perceived deficiency, whether it's physical, whether it's mental or emotional, but you can persevere through it, just like Jarren Duran has done. In fact, his manager, is it Joey Cora or Alex Cora? I think it is. There are two Coras in the major leagues. And in fact, the series gets into that, but the manager of the Red Sox, Alex Cora, gets into the fact, and I hope I didn't get that wrong. I think it is Alex, not Joey, who said at one point, if you want to learn how to be a big league ball player, then learn from Jarren Duran. And you can see there just how much he overcomes diversity, which I thought was a great takeaway from this series as well. And a great lesson, really. This is something that's really excellent to watch with your kids, by the way, especially if they're baseball fans. A lot of kids these days aren't necessarily baseball fans. A lot of people, kids especially, will say, oh, baseball, it's so slow and it's boring, which is unfortunate. But there are still kids that do love baseball. And even if they're not baseball fans, you can sit down and watch it with them. It's clean, except for that epithet part of the series that Jarren made that mistake in. But it's a clean series. It's something that the entire family can watch. And I really believe that this is, it has important lessons like this one in terms of diversity and overcoming diversity and persevering that are great lessons for kids. So if you can encourage your kids to watch it, whether with you or on their own, that would be something that I would humbly recommend. By the way, I'm a father myself, so I come from, not only the perspective of being a kid once, kind of feeling like a kid oftentimes today, but also having kids myself from all sorts of different ages. Okay. And that actually ties in. Speaking of being a parent, it's interesting how that segued, because I wrote down here that he had different types of diversity. His parents, especially his dad, Octavio, was very hard on him growing up. But something I noticed is that he doesn't live in victimhood, in the sense that he still loves his parents. He doesn't blame them. He sort of just speaks about it matter of factly. Now, it could be in his personal life. I don't know. I would assume that Jarren goes to therapy. I don't know that for a fact. So maybe that is something that he talks about there, which is a safe space for that. But the bottom line is he doesn't get into victimhood as he talks about his tough upbringing from his parents, especially not necessarily his parents, but more his dad, how tough his dad was on him. And in fact, he extols the virtues that made him who he is today, and it allowed him to become a major league ball player, because his dad really pushed him and challenged him, because his dad saw greatness in him. But that said, it can be very challenging to have an overbearing dad. And I'm sure that has a major impact on Jarren and his mental health. And that was something that I noticed from this show as well. So if all those dads out there, it's nice to push your kids, and it's good to challenge them. You don't want them, if you feel like you see everybody sees, I would hope most, if not all dads see greatness in their kids. But, there is a price that gets paid oftentimes, whether it's mental health or all sorts of other emotional challenges that a child could have. No parent is perfect. Okay. So obviously you do the best that you can, but just bear in mind that, if you want to be overbearing on your son, because you look at Jarren Duran, you think, oh, he became this major league ball player. It came with a price tag in terms of mental health issues. And yet for Jarren Duran, just to extol his virtues, he doesn't lay there in victimhood. He used it to motivate himself, and he talks only lovingly about his parents, which is really beautiful to see. Next, I wrote down over here the idea of negative self-talk. So this is kind of on the negative category, and Jarren is very much aware of the fact that he speaks very negatively about himself, and that is extremely toxic, because it doesn't help. Many of us tend to have this tendency to speak badly about ourselves or curse ourselves out. I know I struggled with that many times. To this day, I struggle with that. If I make a mistake, I'm particularly hard on myself when I do. I remember it's interesting when I'm no longer married to her, but on one of my first dates with my then wife, she asked me, when am I most hardest on myself? And I said, I'm most hard on myself when I make what I view to be a silly mistake. And I can really tear into myself. And there tends to be this idea that, well, if I'm doing it to myself, it's okay. Nobody's getting hurt. But no, you, the person who's tearing into yourself, are getting hurt. And Jarren mentions that he's aware of that. He knows that it doesn't do him any good. And it's interesting to watch a player struggle with that openly for the world to see on Netflix. He doesn't hide that or sugarcoat that for anybody. So that was something else in terms of takeaways about the humanity of baseball players and the struggles that they go through, and the fact that if we're going through the same types of struggles, we can very much relate to challenges that that Jarren Duran demonstrates in this series. I mentioned the idea about how down to earth he is. Okay, I talked about the idea of a lot of players being perceived as pampered, and some are. But Jarren Duran, he's driving a Bronco. It's simple. He enjoys driving it. And then in something that's very interesting and sweet, his Bronco breaks down, and it's not like you see one of the other players trying to call a service to go and help him. It's pretty comical. He calls a mechanic, I think, at one point or something like that. There was he calls the wrong type of service, but Jarren actually calls his dad, and he's getting under the car, and he's trying to fix it, and he's going under the hood, and he's fiddling with wires, and in fact, he's able to fix his own car. So just like an everyday man, blue collar, working hard, again, this guy's an athlete. Many could perceive him in one way, but this just this little episode of watching Jarren working on his car that breaks down just goes to show you how much of an everyday person he is, how down to earth he is, and that just because you achieve fame and status as a Major League Baseball player, it doesn't mean that you can't retain your roots and keep your feet firmly planted on the ground. And something else that was interesting to me is that even though he talks about the idea, Jarren, of having issues with self-esteem at times and mental health, he has enough confidence to put on this like flashy suit. You have to watch the show, you have to watch the program to understand what I'm talking about. This is a suit that I've never seen before in terms of its, well, I shouldn't say never. I've seen a lot of flashy suits, but this one in particular is flashy. He really decks it out. And the confidence it takes to do that, it was just interesting to me to see that he expressed reservation about wearing a suit like that, but he did it anyways. And I think that really exemplifies Jarren's character, that he will find challenges in doing something. He will be fearful of something, but he does it anyways. Okay, and there was a book that I think I have in my library just out of the camera over here. I think it's called Feel the Fear, but Do It Anyway, something like that. I forget. I'll try to remember to link to that in the notes of this video, where nobody's saying that you don't necessarily have to have fear over something. You can have that fear, but do it anyways. And Jarren really exemplifies that. He goes out and wears that suit, and he's wearing that in front of a live national audience as well as all the other players. And that ties into my last point, because not only does he have the confidence to do that, that was while he was feeling what's known as imposter syndrome. What does imposter syndrome mean? That means that even when somebody is doing well and does deserve to be there, they feel like they're not worthy. They don't deserve to be there. And Jarren gets selected to the All-Star game, and he talks about the idea of not feeling like he belongs. He doesn't feel worthy enough, but he goes out there, he wears that suit with confidence, and you know what? Again, spoiler alert, he ends up becoming the MVP of the All-Star game. That goes to show you just how far confidence and, taking those steps, even if you're not necessarily feeling confident inside, but to work with that fear and not give into it, it goes to show you what you can accomplish. So those are the various takeaways. I'm just going to do a brief summary of what we talked about. We talked about the idea of somebody who's a major league player who could be perceived as being pampered and yet has very real struggles. And I think it's something that we can all learn from, to see the struggles like Jarren Duran goes through and how he still continues to persevere. The idea of being a role model, and how Jarren, I keep calling him Evan. I think it's because there was a rock group, Evan and Jarren, that I keep getting confused. I don't know if they were a one-hit wonder, but anyways, Jarren is a role model, and the responsibility that comes with that, how much of a price he has to pay for making that mistake as a role model. I'm sure he'll never make that mistake again, and just how kind he is, and how you can be kind when you're in a role model role. Okay, it can be tiring. I didn't mention before, you do that every day in, day out. You meet these fans, you can see yourself getting sick of it. And Jarren says he continues to do it day in, day out after every single game. So he takes his job, not only his job as a baseball player, but also as a role model, very seriously, and he's very kind about doing it. He overcomes diversity in other ways, not just mental health, also his height. So this is to all those who are short, don't give up hope. There is hope for short men and short people generally out there. He grew up with tough parents and others, or tough father anyways. Another example of adversity that he's had to overcome. And it's a message to dads, especially, and parents out there. You can push your kids hard and you want them to succeed, but oftentimes there's a price for doing that. So, there is a method to doing things in a way that you respect your children's capabilities as well, without overdoing it. In this case, Jarren was ever able to persevere, and a big part of that is because he doesn't live as a victim. And in fact, he speaks glowingly of his parents. He takes them to the All-Star game, by the way, which I didn't mention. There's down-to-earth stories and little anecdotes. You can watch him getting under his Bronco, which is a pretty simple car for a baseball player, fixing it himself. No prima donna over there. The confidence it takes to wear the suit that he wore to the All-Star game, despite having that imposter syndrome that he was feeling. So he felt the fear, but he went ahead and achieved anyways, becoming, in fact, the MVP of the All-Star game, all while having those imposter syndrome fears. So I hope you found that video not only informative, maybe somewhat entertaining, maybe more informative than entertaining, maybe a little bit of both, I hope. But I just wanted to share this with you because I really enjoyed watching the series, the producers, the directors, everybody involved with making the Clubhouse a year with the Red Sox. Is it called A Year with the Boston Red Sox or A Year with the Red Sox? I'll get that when I do all the titling and the description of this video. But in any case, it's an absolutely fantastic series. I recommend that you watch it. I recommend that your children watch it with your children. And don't forget, once again, to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss a future video. I cover all sorts of different subjects that I find interesting. I think you will as well, whether it's consciousness or, entertainment or sports. And like the video, share this with anybody who you think may enjoy it, probably anybody who you know is a Boston Red Sox fan. And great to be back with you. Once again, if you missed the early part of this video, the video quality is probably not as good. I don't even want to say that. It's even more bad than the usual bad quality of my production capabilities, just because my webcam went down just before I recorded this. But nonetheless, I wanted to do it, and I hope you're grateful for it as I am. Or I shouldn't say I hope you're grateful. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm certainly grateful that you came to my channel. And until next time, I look forward to seeing you at the next video. Hey, thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit the like button, share this video with anybody who you think would like it as well, and feel free to leave a comment and your feedback. It's always welcome. As well, you'd be helping me as well as yourself if you hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so that you don't miss a future video.